Apologies, everyone, for the technical difficulties this morning. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being patient. I'd like to start off our September Borough Board. Good to see everybody. I'll be starting it off, and I believe we'll be joined by Keisha Sutton-James and the Borough President shortly. I think we'll first start off with just a roll call to CB1.
Good morning, Tammy Meltzer, Manhattan Community Board 1.
Morning, Tammy. CB2, please.
Good morning, Janine Kiley, CB2.
Janine. CB3.
Paul Rangel, CB3.
Hey, Paul. CB4.
Good morning, Jeffrey LaFrancois, Board 4.
Jeffrey. CB5.
Good morning, Vicky Barbero, CB5.
CB6.
Good morning, Kyle Thide, CB6.
CB7.
Good morning, Andrew Ridgey, CB7. Sorry, on the street. It's school drop-off time.
No problem. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. CB8.
Hi, Russell Squire, CB8.
Hey, Russell. CB9.
Good morning, Barry Weinberg, CB9.
Hey, Barry. CB10.
Good morning, Cicely Harris, CB10.
Great. Morning, Cicely. CB11.
Good morning, Xavier Santiago, CB11. Glad to know I'm not the only one with school drop-off this morning.
Thanks for joining us, Xavier. And CB12. Okay. So we definitely have quorum. Thank you for being here, everyone. Going to move on to our first agenda item. If we can just adopt today's Borough Board meeting agenda. So have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion.
Great. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to the second agenda item, approval of August 18 Borough Board meeting minutes. Any questions about that? Otherwise, we can take a vote.
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. Second.
Second.
Great. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. So we're still waiting on the borough president to join us, as well as our deputy borough president. So I'd like to move on for a moment to our panelists. We have Alana Pilar Cantillo here from the New York Immigration Coalition. Who's going to talk to us about all the amazing efforts that they've been doing with asylum seekers. So Alana, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have some slides, so just give me a moment while I share my screen and let me know if you can hear me okay.
Yep, can hear you.
Cool. Yeah. And can you see my presentation?
Let's see it.
All right, fabulous. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Alana Cantillo. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with the New York Immigration Coalition. Really happy to join you all this morning to provide a little bit of an update and context for some challenges that we're seeing here in New York with some recent arrivals coming from the southern border. Before I get started into the topic, I just want to introduce the New York Immigration Coalition more broadly. We're a 35-year organization, one of the oldest and largest immigrant rights coalitions in the country. We do advocacy work, we do service coordination, we have offices all over the state, and we really work to improve the lives of recent arrivals and new Americans. So that people have equity, that they don't have barriers to services, and that they are able to live a life with dignity. And so we take on legislative and budget campaigns, advocacy issues at the federal, state, and local level. And we work with our 200 members across the state to move forward our policy agenda. So what we're seeing in the past few months is that we've gotten some recent arrivals from Central South America and the Caribbean, predominantly from Venezuela and Colombia. You know, we've seen folks immigrate from the Republic of Congo, Cuba, and a variety of different countries. And they are arriving here to New York City for a number of different reasons. So what is causing the uptick in recent arrivals? First and foremost, it's a bit of political theater. Texas Governor Abbott has been using the transportation of migrants from the southern border, and we're seeing this as well from Arizona and from different parts of the South. Florida just recently started using this sort of political theater and asylum seekers as a political pawn for their ambition. You know, Republicans are stirring anti-immigrant sentiment as part of their platform to be critical of President Biden, to challenge the upcoming midterms and the, you know, slim majority that Democrats have both in the House and the Senate. And so they're redirecting initially to Washington, D.C., and now to all parts of the country. We're hearing folks getting shipped to Chicago, Virginia, like I mentioned, Washington, D.C., here in New York, Maine, and as recent as this week, a story of some asylum seekers being shipped to Martha's Vineyard. And it's a really grotesque situation in the sense that people have already endured months of traveling in really arduous conditions, so much sacrifice, so much, you know, food insecurity, threats to their safety, after sort of that arduous journey to then be basically forced onto a bus to travel, you know, 2 or 3 days with you know, limited mobility, not being able to get off at rest stops, being able to get food as they're just really being served food provisions. And some of the other reasons is we're seeing a scale back of the Trump administration's policies, immigration policies. You know, I'm sure folks on the call are familiar with, you know, the Muslim and African ban that we saw, and so many other anti-immigrant policies that really created a chilling effect and prevented migration. And now with the recent administrative changes, we're seeing a lot of rollback of those horrible policies and more people being welcomed at our borders. And so folks are fleeing persecution, violence, geopolitical threats. There's climate crises that also encourages migration. And so we believe that migration is a human right and everyone has a right to due process. But there are some recent shifts in policy and most, obviously this, sort of political maneuvering around busing of migrants that has sort of, obviously, people have always come to New York, but has really created a more concentrated challenge that we're seeing here in New York City. And so what are some of the needs that we're managing at the moment? Obviously shelter. I wanna state that, the individuals that are coming are not a monolith. They have a number of different experiences. I myself have personally assisted people with relocation or reticketing so that they can meet family members in Boston, meet family members in New Jersey, get a ride to Connecticut to be reunited with family members as well. But a lot are also coming here with housing insecurity and are going into our shelter system and are being processed to men's shelters, women's shelters, and family housing. There's a lot of food insecurity, and so access to pantries and food services. Legal services, a major concern. As you can imagine, a lot of these immigration cases are very complex, and access to a lawyer, by 90% increases the chance of having a fair day in court. And so making sure that those services are accessible to individuals. Broader service coordination, access to language classes, and access to different agency services like municipal IDs, healthcare access, education and school enrollment, and of course, employment are some of the current needs that we're seeing. And some of the issues that we're seeing and is being, consistently reported on is issues with our shelter system. These folks have, their native language and have some language access issues, which makes some enrollment and some assessment of these individuals a little bit challenging. Our legal service providers need more capacity. We've been pretty flat in our funding of legal services here in New York City, so definitely to bolster those efforts, given the recent influx. Support with school enrollment and notices to appear is just, once again, more of the sort of technical and court proceedings that's happening, as we've actually seen a phenomenon where individuals are being assigned New York addresses of CBOs, community-based organizations, and local community groups as their residents. And I'm in our office right now. We have a whole protocol set up for staff because the New York Immigration Coalition has actually been listed as some of these individuals, and they think that we have sort of formal role. And as I mentioned at the top of my discussion, that we do advocacy work, not direct service. And so there's been a lot of confusion. Catholic Charities has had almost 500 individuals show up at their doors because their addresses are listed as the residency. So a lot of changes need to be made on the back end, as the addresses has been one of the many justifications for people sending here, in addition to some of our sanctuary policy. What has the New York City's agencies and nonprofit sort of sector response been so far? There is a welcoming operation at the Port Authority bus terminal where we're able to provide people meals, bathroom accompaniment, overall just sort of morale boost, access to cell phones so that they can let their families know that they're safe and where they are. And information about sort of how to integrate and how to move forward with their next steps, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We've been able to create an emergency RFP so that we can get more capacity in our shelter system, but our language access needs are ongoing. Now that people are here seeking out different education resources, healthcare resources, we're seeing a lot of difficulties with language access and translation and interpretation at our agencies, and just better coordination of all the agencies that need to be involved and activated to address with this challenge. And some of the urgency is just, like I mentioned, around the coordination that we need, not only at the local level, but we need the state to step up to make sure that, as I mentioned earlier, folks that are traveling to other parts of the state also feel like there's some sort of integration efforts and welcoming efforts. Most recently, we've been doing advocacy at the federal level to expand work permits for this interim people while people wait for their court appearances. And as already mentioned, a significant need for bolstering of legal services. I want to contextualize this that, we here as New Yorkers, our values are really based in diversity. We value diverse communities and we value immigrants. We always have as a city. And so our response has been, to continue to, encourage people to be able to resettle here, to feel like they can have access to our services and feel like there is a network of community and there is a robust ecosystem of service providers that have the trust of our community members and leaders that want to make sure that they're able to thrive and be supported in our communities. So to that end, the NYC launched a campaign called the Welcoming New York campaign. That's really the policy agenda of how to move forward and address the short and long-term needs of migrants here in New York, but also across the country. And some of our asks are, at the White House level, we want better coordination. We want the issue with the notices to appear to be resolved. We want to make sure that the options when people get released are not as slim as either get on this bus or buy a very costly plane ticket to what your final destination is. People don't have access to that, so we want more support with providing transportation and really investigate in any civil rights violations that might be happening with people not consenting to coming to New York or to, being sort of shipped around the country without their consent or without limited availability for options. At the state level, we want an infusement around 10 million to support the emergency contracts. Our direct service providers are already sort of funded in a really difficult way. Contracts are slow moving, payments are slow moving, and the process can be really convoluted, but we know that that these community members are at our doorstep and we want to make sure that the services are available to them and that the welcoming efforts aren't limited here to New York City, that we create ambassadors for these recent arrivals and for all immigrants in a more sustained fashion so that these services can be better coordinated. At the New York City level, we talked about legal services, but we also want people to have longer term access to housing vouchers, better overall integration of recent arrivals with interpreters at the Department of Education and other intake centers, which includes a actual language access co-op that was passed in the June budget. But it's an all hands moment. We see a role for everyone, including private businesses and enterprises and philanthropy to also meet the moment and make investments that provide really critical services like cell phones, Metro cards, food, and other donation materials. Lastly, I'll close, with some of the resources that we're giving people to have more sort of long-term information. So we have a Moya one-pager on how to enroll in healthcare, how to get your ID NYC. We distribute Catholic Charities Legal Services Clinic, which are regular open office hours for people to have support on changing their address form. And we've been in contact with federal agencies for translated resources to have people to be able to manage some of the legal concerns and the reporting concerns as people want to either meet family or reintegrate in different parts of the country and have sort of been given notices to appear at courts throughout the country at random. The NYC provides a New York State Community Toolkit that has a bunch of resources on immigration, healthcare, education, and other services that once again are information for in the long term, once people are sort of more established and settled here in our communities. happy to keep the conversation going and just want to extend my gratitude and appreciation to the Office of the Manhattan Borough President, who has also set up his own donation drive in different offices throughout our borough. But really the response from our city and our local community-based organizations has been phenomenal. It is going to be an uphill climb. There's still so much to do, but really the values forward mission of our agencies and of our leadership has really been encouraging. And I want to, continue to, have people sort of lean into being a welcoming city and making sure that folks can thrive and live in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alana. And I'm going to pass it over now to Keisha Sutton James. But again, I just wanted to thank you for being here for the presentation. I see we already have a hand, but I'll take it from here. Thank you again, Alana.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Alana. Barry, I see you have your hand raised.
There we go. Thank you, Deputy Borough President and Eric, and thank you, Alana, for that presentation. I have a question, or I have several questions. We uptown, I am chair currently of Board 9, which represents West Harlem, but I've also heard these stories from other parts of Harlem and above us in Washington Heights and Inwood, where folks who have been sent here as refugees from the southern border are showing up at our churches, showing up at our service providers and nonprofits, looking for assistance and kind of beginning to overwhelm nonprofits that were not really set up to do refugee services and like relocation and establishment services. So I'm wondering, is there either a city agency or a nonprofit that has a city contract that is supposed to be kind of the initial stop or the one-stop shop, helping these refugees get settled, navigate the city school system and shelter system? Or are we expecting people who have just gone through an incredibly arduous ordeal and then been shipped here several thousand miles from Texas or Florida to then navigate our own bureaucracy, which can be head spinning even to those of us who've been here for many years?
Yeah, so there is a welcome center that has been set up by Catholic Charities. It's by appointment only. It's only been, it's in its sort of early stages of setting up the operations. There was an emergency RFP that the city put out with HRA. Organizations are waiting to get the response of how to be able to expand capacity based on that contract that was released, but the notice of the outcome of that emergency request for proposal has not been released yet. And so, yes, there have been critical investments, not only to our housing departments, but to our community-based organizations that are expected. And Catholic Charities does have a health location in Hell's Kitchen that I can follow up and give y'all some more information on for appointments for some of these immediate questions.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful. And longer term, and this might not be a question you can answer, but who on the government side or on the city government side specifically is coordinating these efforts? Is it Moya? Is it HRA? Who is kind of taking the lead in organizing our response here?
Moya has definitely been sort of at the forefront of sort of identifying these needs and communicating internally with what some of the needs are. And they have some of the most comprehensive resources, which is why, the more one pager on how to enroll in, healthcare for low-income New Yorkers and a municipal ID. And so they also have a hotline where people can call for legal support. So they definitely are sort of centralizing it. But as the needs get sort of more sophisticated from, the potential for setting up a small business to enrolling in schools, we need sort of broad responsibility to be shared from the different agencies as people seek different support.
Got it. And I have other questions. I'm sure other people do too. But the other question is I know that Albany is out of session currently. And, is there any visibility or likelihood into the possibility of getting either federal funding to assist us with this response on an emergency basis, or some sort of flexible funding from Albany?
No word yet from our state leadership on a response to this, but on the federal front, the New York City has applied for FEMA funding. There is an emergency fund at FEMA that was predominantly intended for southern border states for this reason, that we've now applied, given sort of the breadth and the distance that these individuals are traveling at this point. And so the city's definitely made that commitment to get some federal reimbursement and federal funding to respond. And we've been working with senators, our own senator and majority leader Schumer, as well as Senator Gillibrand. But we've had calls with leadership from, as I mentioned, Maine, New Jersey, leadership in DC, to make sure that the application gets prioritized and those that funding moves forward expeditiously.
Got it. Thank you so much for being here today and for answering all those questions.
Kyle, 1 second. I just wanted to share a little bit. I apologize if you said this, Alana, my connection broke out, so I'm not sure if you covered this, but right now, actually the borough president is at a walkthrough for a new asylum seeker navigation center that the mayor is launching today. Again, I apologize if you already said this, but the walkthrough tour is happening right now. The navigation center is going to be located at, I'm scrolling, I apologize. I will come back to that. I can't find the, I'm reading through the draft press release that came.
It's on 49th Street at the Red Cross, teacher, 49th Street.
There you go. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Brewer. So they're going to be offering healthcare services directly and through referral, health insurance enrollment, mental health counseling, school enrollment, immigration, legal services, and other services. So obviously there will be more information that will be coming about this throughout the course of the day. It's literally happening right this morning. So I just want to make sure that I shared that with you as well. And I saw a hand up, but it's gone. Are there any more questions?
Oh, it was my hand, Keisha.
Oh, Kyle, there you go.
Yeah, no worries. First of all, thank you so much, Alana, for your presentation, and to New York Immigration Coalition for everything that you've been doing. I think we can all agree that it's disgusting that these governors are using immigrants as political pawns in their weird, bizarre game. But in terms of community board support, is there anything that we could do on the resolution side or on the advocacy side that would complement and support the work that you're doing? Is there anything that we could provide?
Hi, Kyle. Thank you for the question. Yes, so you'll notice that part of our Welcoming New York agenda actually includes existing legislation that's been introduced at the state level. We have the benefit of not having formal law enforcement agreements with ICE here in New York City, but that is not the case across the state. And so we have to sort of decouple a lot of local and state law enforcement efforts with the federal agenda. And so we have a bill called New York for All, which would make this sort of disjointed experience of migrants across the states more uniform and take our local and municipal sort of law enforcement out of the work of ICE. And so a resolution in support of that initiative would be fabulous. We have a bill called Coverage for All, which would expand our low-income healthcare plan, which right now has a barrier with citizenship. And so, yeah, I'm happy to send that over to you for you to take a look, and just, statements of support, which has really been hugely beneficial to sort of stem the tide of the Republican and conservative narrative. From the leadership that's on this call and the leadership in your communities would be hugely beneficial. And then the distribution of some of the resources that I mentioned, I'll be sure to share the slides and make sure that you have access to our toolkit, our one pager, and just all of the resources on our website as different issues come up, so that you have it at the ready to to stay informed and be able to distribute it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. If you can share that with Eric and our team, we'll make sure to get it out to all of the chairs. Any other questions? Okay, I thank you so much. We all thank you so much for this really full and robust presentation, and also for the work that you're doing on behalf of all immigrants, but in particular the asylum seekers that are coming right now. So thank you, Alana, for the presentation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day. Moving along, Councilmember Brewer, thank you so much for joining us. I hate to put you on the spot, but if you are ready, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. Just in terms of the asylum seekers, I appreciate that discussion. I've been focusing, we've all been to the Port Authority a couple of times, but the main issue for me are the working papers, because obviously they're all eligible. They're considered parole. That's a weird term, but that means they can work. And they don't have working papers. So it usually takes 30 days. For some reason, it's taking 90 days. Hopefully that's not going to happen. So we've been pushing, writing, talking to the mayor's office. They're pushing also. I know the Congress member, Hakeem Jeffries and Adriana Espiat in particular are fighting. And we've written lots of letters. We're getting a sign-on letter now with all the members of the New York City Council to the feds stating we need these working papers. It would change everything immediately. Most of the families are two-parent families. Everybody wants to work. You got lawyers, engineers, IT people. You got a whole range of incredibly talented individuals here. So just so you know, even resolutions, we can send you a copy of the letter saying we need the working papers might be helpful, because obviously there are lots of issues, but working papers would solve 90% of them in my book. Because these folks would go right to their apartments, they would find their own. They're amazingly talented. So I would just suggest that. And other issues in terms of the legislation, these e-bike batteries, I don't need to tell you because you've been reading about it in the paper. So we have a bill, other council members have a bill. The idea is don't hurt the workers. They are delivering all 65,000 of them food, but the issue is what are you going to do about the batteries? So because they are often secondhand, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it's not working because people are dying. So we've got registering the stores, have them certified, don't buy secondhand. Problem is they cost more when they're new. So just so you know, we're all working on that. We've been out to meet with the delivery people in Brooklyn. I have now quite an expert on batteries, and we're working on that. Second, catalytic converters. We have a bill to make sure that they are identified. I know on 79th Street, a whole bunch of people lost their catalytic converters. They run around $3,000 or $4,000 to get a new one. All through the city, they're being stolen. But in some cars, it takes 2 minutes, not even, to steal it, and then you make quite a bit of money, in the thousands. So that's a topic. We are just smaller things. I've always been a big believer in water fountains, and we need more of them. So I'm pushing that for parks and green streets. If you tell kids particularly not to have sugary drinks, you gotta have some place for them to get water that's clean. And I can talk more about water in a minute. We want to have all the material about co-naming of streets online, one place so people can find it. I'm tired of people asking who's that person. It's not coordinated, so we're working on that. And then we're all still working along with Councilmember Powers on this commercial rent tax. It's still a problem from, as you know, all the way up from Chambers to 96th Street. You have to pay extra tax in the borough of Manhattan. We want to get the grocery stores in particular out of it. The city council this week, it was a big deal to put $1 million into the abortion fund. There are 2 organizations working on people coming from other states, and it's up 900% in terms of people coming here for abortions. So one fund takes care of travel and daycare if needed, and hotel, and another one pays for the abortion. So I think it's our money, meaning your money, but in addition, there's a lot of private money going into these 2 funds. And so far it seems to be working. They're guaranteeing 100% of the requests to be filled. Also, other topics, we had hearings in my committee, which is oversight investigations on the municipal workforce. I don't know about you, but I find hard to get a buildings inspection. If you want to build affordable housing, you can't get it signed off because there's nobody in the office at HPD. Fire department, I have, say, I don't know, 3 or 4 restaurants, daycare centers. Since November, they can't get a sign off, and I get it because I push, but the rest of the, it's crazy. 24,000 vacancies in the city of New York. And if you want to see a really good briefing paper, we'd be glad to share it. It really lists all the vacancies. So any suggestions or problems you have along those lines, I'd love to hear about it. Of course, the anti-vax people showed up. They want to get rehired. You know, that's up to them and the mayor. There's about 1,700 of them who got fired because they didn't want to get vaccinated. But there are 24,000 vacancies. That's, you know, I understand the mayor with his 3% pay cut, but that's, you have to have somebody there to do the work. Lawyers will not come to the city of New York because they want to have some hybrid opportunities. And generally, the pay scale is low. It used to be, you get benefits, go to the city, great. But people have other opportunities now and they're gone. I worry about the health department. The greatest health department in the world is not that now. So that whole topic. We are having a hearing on the 23rd about the water situation in the NYCHA in Reese houses. I also get calls from West Side NYCHA developments that have groundwater. So the whole issue, why did it happen? Who's the company? Investigation. We're doing the same thing with contracts. So we have a lot of topics that are taking place in oversight and investigations. If you have any ideas, let me know. One of the topics is where's my money, says Gillibrand, Senator Gillibrand. So we have affordable housing money. We know exactly where her 30 million went, and we can see the problem. The problem is the vouchers, and there's lots of vouchers, state vouchers, city vouchers, and there's federal emergency vouchers for housing. And I think, if I don't have my numbers in front of me, it's like 17% of those that have been allocated through NYCHA and 15% of those that have been allocated through HPD have been used because nobody can find an apartment with these vouchers. So just so you know, it's nice to say they've all been allocated, but only those numbers have been used because they cannot be, it doesn't work for the economy that we're in. In terms of budget, I think if you want, you know, you all have different districts, but information is on Schedule C. In addition, the City Council has a whole bunch of initiatives where they put other information. Those have not been completed. I hope in the next couple of City Council meetings, it'll all be available. We're also starting on the West Side participatory budget. It's starting up, and anybody, I think, is going on in other districts, just so you know. I think this pandemic, the schools are the biggest challenge right now. We tried really hard, the mayor was not cooperative, to get the $469 million. We felt strongly that the federal money was there, it could have been used. The mayor would not do it. I want to thank the speaker because she tried really hard. I think what the DOE did was they quickly sped up. When you have a teacher that you're trying to keep, you have to go through a process. And I think they sped up those processes, which was good. So they, in some cases, at least with the schools I know, they were able to keep the teachers because that process was faster. So that's good. On the other hand, arts money, dual language, extra money, etc. Money for just paying for good, better wellness in the schools in terms of food, etc. That money's not there. So we have a whole bunch of, and I don't know enough about mental health. That's of course a topic that I've been talking about with social workers forever. So schools are still an issue. I don't need to say more because I think you know that. We have a good new superintendent in District 3. He's phenomenal. He's been going on a listening tour to the playgrounds, talking to parents. I think all superintendents should do that. It's been very, very successful. I want to just mention about playgrounds. I've been talking about this for a long time. It costs money, but I feel very strongly about it. There are some school playgrounds that are open because they're jointly operated, parks and DOE. But most of them are not. And it was under Bloomberg. Yes, you can have a playground open if you're 10 minutes, more than 10 minutes from a park. But we want all the playgrounds to be open. They have to be cleaned by the superintendent, by the custodian. So they cost money. Somebody's got to open them, close them, and clean them. But I feel strongly that this would be an issue. If that's something that you care about, let me know. I'm putting together through IBO a listing of all the playgrounds that are closed in the city of New York, how much it would cost I think as we are trying to come back, so to speak, and people need exercise and community, these playgrounds should be open on the weekends. In terms of seniors, we continue our senior food program. I think Councilmember Batra is doing it, just the two of us now with, and I want to thank the borough president because it wouldn't happen without his staff and him, and I appreciate the seniors love this program. Fresh fruits and vegetables for $10, and it's a $20 value, and particularly today's economy, even better. We do that every 2 weeks, and it's phenomenal. We're also working with Brookdale and Hunter on trying to figure out how to help 311 and those who are using it. Why can't 311 provide technology for seniors? In other words, you call 311 and somebody would help you with all the tech issues you have as a senior. I want to thank Board 7 on congestion pricing. We had a Zoom. We're going to do another one. We worked with Board 7. Oh, so many calls on this topic. I'm supportive, but the details are incredibly important. So I want to just mention that. We've been doing a book drive. We have thousands, not hundreds, thousands of books have been dropped off for young people, and we are going to work with JCC. They're going to do the sorting of it. I can't tell you how popular this is, something to think about. And what we'll do is when we have all the books sorted sometime in October, early November, then we will make sure that people, young people from NYCHA and from those from homeless and asylum families get first dibs. We'll figure that out and then we'll open it up to everybody. But 1,000 people bringing by cars of books. When we allocate funding for playgrounds, as we did for Dinosaur in Riverside Park and Saw Bloom on 92nd Street, we decided to have sort of roundtable of discussion in the parks. Tons of people are coming. They have ideas. They want to have more times, and we're doing that. So that's been really successful. The biggest issues, as you can imagine, quality of life. We've had some tables out in the community at problem blocks, and between the the parking of the bikes, the sanitation, the homeless, these cannabis stores. I don't need to tell you, popping up everywhere, illegal, illegal, 24 hours. I'm working on it. We all are. That's a whole topic in itself. Which agency is responsible for what? So we're actually putting together a sheet that describes where the problems are, who's responsible, etc. When I went around with the Consumer Affairs Commissioner, I began to understand what she can do, what the state's supposed to do, what PD's supposed to do, and what nobody's doing. So we have had tours with the Sanitation Commissioner, the Consumer Commissioner, and today we're doing with the SBS Commissioner. I want to say I've been going out with Norman Siegel's group on homeless issues. You really see what the problems are. Half the time people get sent somewhere, they don't have a cell phone, so nobody can communicate to know whether that was a successful referral. Everybody from the street wants their own room. There are ways to solve this problem. It's very frustrating to see nobody wants to take the suggestions that are made. So Norman Siegel is very close to the mayor, and I think he might have some suggestions. We've been going out once a week with a whole group of people. The 59th Street has where Manhattan Neighborhood Network used to be, Project Return, has been slated to do women's shelter. I wanted it to be permanent housing. I screamed and yelled and I lost. I want to thank all the groups of individuals in that area. We've been meeting with the city, and I have to say they're amazing, the groups in that area, the residents. So just so you know, that's ongoing. The bicycles, e-bike, we all need to work together, some kind of a task force. I'm going to do it on the west side to figure out if there's any solution to follow the rules of the road. Central Park is doing their own very sophisticated research, follow-up, and so on, just so you know. We had a really good spotted lantern flies as a way of building a trap for them, and we did it at the Riverside Park Country Fair. It was so fabulous. Finally, our district office is open every day, and our newsletter, if I say so myself, is the best in the city. Please sign up. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Brewer. I thank you for that very robust report. You have one question from Paul Rangel.
Sure.
Oh, two questions, Paul and Tammy. Paul?
I think Tammy had her hand up first.
I think so too, but for some reason it switched on my screen. Tammy,
right.
please.
Yeah. My question is quick. I'll be really quick. Gail, good morning. You said you mentioned you're gonna have a hearing about the arsenic and the Reese houses. What date is that?
23rd of September. 23rd.
Thank you. That's it. Sorry.
Thanks, Tammy.
So thank you for fighting for the supermarkets. I'm just going to note that one of the biggest problems in CB1 we have is the rising lack of affordability and the cost of goods and everything else that is so expensive down here, making any amount of affordability we have trickle away. So the rules are written for supermarkets north of Chambers and Canal. We have people who live here. We're the largest growing district in Manhattan in terms of residential growth. So anything you could do to potentially extend the benefits for supermarkets to the tip of the island would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks so much, Councilmember Brewer. We appreciate your coming and sharing out. Have a great day if you're leaving us. I see the borough president has joined us. I will, before I pass it off to him, I'm sure he will say more about this. I failed to make sure that we recognize the fact that our office has been also leading a donation drive at both of our offices, both on 125th and at our Northern Manhattan office, as well as here at the David N. Dinkins building. So we're really encouraging people, each one of you, to encourage and share that information out with your communities so that we can continue to build on our collection drive. And I will from there, I will pass it on to, by the way, Keisha Smith is on the line if we have any questions for her about the collection drive. We will also be having a resource fair, hopefully in a couple of weeks, that Marielle De La Cruz has been working on. But with that, I will pass it on to the borough president for his report.
Thank you so much, Keisha, and good morning, everybody. It's great to see all of you. Coming from the newly opened Resource Navigation Center, where I spent the last hour or so with the mayor and the senior team that's opening up what's going to be an incredible resource for migrants arriving to New York City. I actually think that you all should be really proud about what's happening there. This is in the Red Cross offices on 47th Street between 10th and 11th Avenue. And this is going to be a single destination for migrants who are arriving to get medical care, sign up for health insurance, enrollment in public schools, assistance with legal matters on immigration, access to food. Most people will have housing by the time they get there, but if they need access to the shelter system, they can do that there as well. It's opened at 9 this morning for the first time. It's going to be open daily, 9 to 3:30. They're strongly encouraging appointments ahead of time, which are going to be made through shelters and CBOs. But I think in practice, if people just show up, no one's going to be turned away. We're the only city in the country doing this, and I think it really sets an example for the country on how to live up to our credo of being a refuge for people who need it. But you've also heard that the scale of this continues to mount. We're getting, on average, 4 to 6 buses a day arriving to the Port Authority, and the buses are pretty full, so that amounts to 200 to 300 a day. And it seems like it could go much higher than that, potentially much higher than that on a daily basis. And it just underscores the fact that while New York City is committed to doing the right thing, we need federal help. We need the federal government to step up and help us. We need federal funding reimbursement. FEMA has a program, the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, which has been reimbursing Texas for years. We need that same reimbursement. The fund is running out of money nationally. That has to be fixed. Talk to the families that are arriving, as I have a number of times. The first thing they'll mention is they want to work. They want work permits, and they had the right to seek work permits as asylum seekers, but they need approval from the Department of Homeland Services, and the bureaucracy there is now taking 6 months or more to give that approval. That's unacceptable. You have people who can't earn a living now and are stuck in the shelters because of it. They don't want to be there. We need that expedited. And then finally, what we need from the federal government is leadership and coordination nationally. You shouldn't leave it up to hateful xenophobic governors in Texas, and now we see Florida getting in on this too, to determine our national plan. There are cities and localities all over the country that are willing and able to welcome migrants, even other parts of New York State. And a national plan could ensure that every location is activated, whatever the cynical plans of the governor of Texas are. So we are asking for help. We're also asking for help from regular New Yorkers. The response on the donation drives has just been overwhelming. It's been incredibly moving. We also need volunteers, or the agencies need volunteers, Spanish-speaking volunteers almost exclusively. And we'll share with you the way people can sign up, but Catholic Charities and the Red Cross have put out a call for Spanish-speaking volunteers at this welcome center that I was just telling you about, and we'll share with you the best way to get involved if you yourself can help, or if you know people who can. I next want to talk about the open meetings law. I know it's been very, very much on the mind of all of you. It just seems like every week the landscape is changing here. The governor has made it known publicly that she's not going to be renewing the COVID emergency orders. The mayor has an order in effect that goes till September 23rd. And what happens after that is what we're trying to get clarity on. There are emergency orders in place for 2 other public health emergencies, which is monkeypox and polio. And in the case of monkeypox, there's a city order and a state order. In the case of polio, there's a state order. Now, this is unprecedented. We've never had emergency orders for 3 different infectious disease in place at the same time. And so there's been a little lack of clarity on what this means for us, for the open meetings law, for community boards. We are in constant communication with the city's law department. And it appears that they have determined that the monkeypox order does give boards the discretion to still operate virtually. And I know that is a big deal with big implications, so I'm weighing my words carefully there, but this is the guidance that we got yesterday from the law department. We're seeking to clarify that. We've not gotten clarity on the polio emergency order. We know the clock is ticking with the due date being the 23rd. So we're going to continue to update you, but I've just given the latest that we've heard as of yesterday on that, and we'll continue to communicate regularly on that. Finally, speaking of emergency orders and health crisis, just want to talk about the rollout of the new formula for COVID boosters, which there's a new version which is formulated for Omicron, which makes it more effective. And anyone who's getting their booster now, this is what you want to get. And people have been waiting. If you haven't gotten a booster in this calendar year, you want to get it, you can do it with your flu shot. You get one in one arm and one in the other. And it's now easier than ever to get this. There are really 3 or 4 main ways to do it. One is that there's about 350 pharmacies around the city that are offering the updated booster, as well as the flu shot, of course. And you can find one at Vaccine Finder. Just Google Vaccine Finder NYC, and you can select for booster shots. You can select for Moderna or Pfizer, and you can find where in your neighborhood the pharmacies are offering that. Secondly, public hospitals have now opened vaccination programs with the updated booster. They have a good supply open to the general public, not just for patients. In Manhattan, I think the only site is Bellevue. There are 7 citywide. Bellevue's getting about 100 a day. I think they got 100 people came in yesterday requesting the updated booster. They have a capacity for a lot more. So we want to get the word out. And then the third way I'll tell you about to get your updated booster is the home vaccination program. People forgot about it, but you can get vaccinated in your home if you are homebound, or anybody who is 65 or plus can get a clinician will come right to your door and will vaccinate you with, if you want, the updated booster. And you have to sign up for it, and they call you and they schedule it. It usually takes a week or two. I've posted the link. We'll get it for you if you don't know. But please spread the word. If you've been waiting to get a booster, now's the time to do it. And you have many ways now. It's easy, it's quick, it's free. So I'm going to pause there. I think I see Janine with a hand up, or Keisha, if you want to moderate that, I'll turn it back to you.
You got it, Janine.
Just a quick question. When does the monkeypox emergency order expire?
I don't think it has an expiration date. I don't know the answer to that. Sorry. We'll clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, just wanted to see if
Yeah,
yes,
I'll jump in there
Chris,
actually. Forgive me, Borough President.
Please, Chris, please.
There are actually two pieces to the monkeypox order. There's the health declaration, which does not have an expiration date, and there's the emergency order from the city. Emergency order actually has an expiration date of the 28th. That said, I haven't talked to the OHMH. Doesn't sound like they're planning on rescinding the health declaration, which would mean that we can probably expect that the executive order is going to be extended through October. We're going to see, and we're talking to them a lot. But the impression we have from DOHMH as recently as yesterday was that they're still looking at monkeypox. Obviously, the numbers have shifted. The epi curve has come to a close there, but they're still taking it very seriously right now, and so are still looking at it. Aren't planning on the next couple of days rescinding that order. So I think our
Thank
hope
you, Chris.
that'll be extended.
Thanks, Chris. Jeffrey?
Good morning, Borough President. Thanks for the updates. Just curious regarding the Asylum Resource Center. What were the hours of that again?
I believe it's 9 to 3:30, and I think it's 7 days a week, not Monday to Friday, but I'll confirm that.
Okay. We have I'm sure this is going to hit the papers today, given it opens today, and so just want to be able to message out as fact-based as possible to CB4 members, in particular our Housing, Health, and Human Services Committee, because I'm concerned about how this will land if we don't continue to educate folks about the importance of this, and that Board 4 has this facility, and so it's where resources should be offered from. And I am just concerned of how this will land and potentially sort of have I want to avoid any negative backlash to this because of the concentration of services that are already happening on the west side.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you being a voice for reason here, and for of course standing up for the idea that we would welcome migrants. The location, I think, is partly chosen because of the proximity to the bus terminal, which is
and it's the Red Cross can do it. That I understand
yeah, exactly.
completely. So it's just being able to share the information. So I'm trying to think if we need to. Is the mayor's office going to put out a sort of a press release and one sheet on
yes,
this? That will have
this is going to be. I don't think I've ever seen more TV cameras in one place in my life than I saw this morning. So this is national news.
Okay.
It's because we're the first place in the country to do it. So I mean, everybody is going to hear about it if they watch any news. There were also lots of sharp questions from reporters today on the question of right to shelter in New York City, and clarifying whether the mayor was calling for a reconsideration of that. And actually the mayor's the counsel to the mayor was there and spoke. I think they wanted to be very clear from a legal perspective that they're actually not questioning the right to shelter. They see it as settled by the courts unambiguously, And to the extent that they're reconsidering anything, it's really just operational questions. So I think they were being very, very careful to say that. I know some alarm bells went off yesterday, and that sounds like they're trying to be very clear that we are going to continue to provide shelter to every single person in the city who needs it, including people who arrive on these buses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, just I'm glad you clarified that, Borough President, because that's, I know, caused a lot of consternation.
Yeah.
I don't think people appreciate that the right to shelter is something that is a challenge for local governments in New York, but is ultimately both an asset and the humane and moral way to handle this. California does not have a right to shelter, and the Bay Area has about the same homeless population that New York City does. The difference is that 80 to 90% of our homeless population is sheltered, and 80 to 90% of their homeless population is not sheltered and lives in the streets. And so if you've been to the Bay Area, you see that impact in terms of tent cities and the lack of sanitation facilities and issues with street cleanliness and disease. It is just a shocking difference both to the conscience and also to people attempting to live their lives on both sides of that housing divide. And so I would much rather live in New York City, where there is a right to shelter, than in the Bay Area, where there isn't, even as someone who is securely housed. So people need to understand that while that is a difficulty that our city government faces challenges in living up to, it is not something we ever want to back away from.
Thank you for that perspective, Barry. I totally agree. Very proud that we have that right here. I just wish more places in the country did. And perhaps that could be subject to some national legislation. But in the meantime, we certainly can't back away from it in New York.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Great to see all of you.
Thanks, Mr. Borough.
Back to you, Keisha.
Fantastic. All right, we will shift over to chair reports. Barry, it is September, so you are up first.
Yes. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you to the Borough President and Gail for all of the amazing information today. We have already had a very busy month. One of the most concerning items is that over the Labor Day weekend, our office and I were inundated with emails, texts, phone calls from neighbors on the block around 145th and Amsterdam, reporting that the Emma Bowen Health Center and Heritage Healthcare Center at 1727 Amsterdam was being closed down to be redeveloped into a homeless shelter. We had not heard anything. This is it's kind of actually questionable who owns this site. Acris appears to show the City of New York. HHC says they own it, Health and Hospitals Corporation. But we had not heard anything from Health and Hospitals or HPD or the tenants. After reaching them after the Labor Day weekend, the initial response was, "I don't think you're supposed to know about that yet," which is never the right response for a community board calling a city agency to ask what's happening in their district. And it later turned out that Health and Hospitals Corporation and HPD had been working for the past 3 years to develop plans for that site to build not a homeless shelter, but they claim permanent supportive housing and affordable housing, which are things that the community board is on record as supporting. However, they kept this in the dark for 3 years to avoid public scrutiny. They selected a developer that does primarily develop homeless shelters, which is why the community assumed that this was going to be a homeless shelter. And they also selected a provider that, has no connections to the community, mostly operates in Lower Manhattan and the Bronx, with some in Brooklyn, but only has one site in Upper Manhattan, and that's in Central Harlem. And so we were very perturbed by this. We got them to our executive committee meeting on last Thursday. We were happy that they came, but we still have more questions that we are slowly finding the answers to. And we are trying to assess what the impact of this will be on our community. One of the most perturbing things that we've learned is that the health services the square footage at the new development that will be dedicated to health services is only going to be 17,000 square feet. The current facility is 59,000 square feet, and it is home to the Emma Bowen Center, which is a mental health, community-based mental health care provider that is that deals primarily with people to moderate to severe mental health needs, including severe bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, substance abuse, and other comorbidities with those. And they also operate a preschool early learning center for children with severe mental health issues. And so to suggest that they go from their current 32,000 square feet to 16, 17,000 square feet will result in a reduction of services to our community that is completely unacceptable and just not feasible to support at a time when mental health care in our neighborhood, like every neighborhood across the city, is needed now more than ever, especially as hospitals close their psychiatric wards and inpatient beds or downsize them, and while residential treatment facilities are closing. So the current plan as proposed by HHC and BRC is likely to be found not supportable by the community board. We're also exploring the approval process for this, as HHC is subject to a state law that authorized their creation, and the process there is a public hearing and vote by the city council. We believe it's land owned by the city of New York and thus subject to ULURP whenever someone is trying to disposition it. But regardless, the plan is currently stated is not viable. And since they insist that everything is still very preliminary, they should have no problems amending it and changing it. Now, if they've been lying about the fact that it's preliminary, and in fact, they have incurred significant costs over the past 3 years, then that's on them. And, we would appreciate all of the other community boards' support on this. If it can happen to an HHC-owned or city-owned lot in Board 9, it can happen anywhere on such a lot. I don't understand how we can talk about cutting mental health services at a time when we are so obviously at a point of crisis in mental health care in this city. So that has dominated much of our bandwidth for the past 2 weeks. We do have some positive news out of Board 9, which is that a teacher in Board 9 at the A. Philip Randolph School has won New York State Teacher of the Year, Billy Green, a science teacher. So that is a piece of good news that we're very happy about and that we're celebrating. I also want to note that we are still hiring for 2 positions now, community associate and community assistant. If anyone knows folks looking to apply, please let us know. The other issues that we are facing, we continue to kind of move along with the Morningside Heights rezoning that I've been talking about for years. It is in the EAS stage. There is an EAS being done, which we're very excited about. We hope to move on to formal ULURP toward the end of the calendar year. And then we are also attempting to get the attention of the LPC to support 2 extensions to historic districts in our community. One would be extending the Hamilton Heights Sugar Hill Historic District west, and the other would be extending the Morningside Heights Historic District in various places that were left out, but nonetheless have contiguous architectural and cultural contributions to the area. And then one other thing that I want to add, thank you to anyone who helped with the BX19, getting the stop returned on Convent Avenue. This was something that was part of the Bronx bus redesign, but that was never presented to the public. We had reviewed the Bronx bus redesign and made sure it was still there. And then after the public review, they decided to change it and take it out. there was one other major thing that I wanted to point out. We have been doing hybrid meetings and preparing for the end of the mayor's order on and the governor's order for the COVID emergency. And the very important final piece that I wanted to state, I appear to have, one of the other things that's in this site at 1727 Amsterdam is a childhood immunization drive provider. And Community Board 9 has one of the lowest childhood polio vaccination rates in Manhattan, which is not something we're proud of, but given that that is now also a pressing need that we need addressed, that is a further threat to losing this space. I do want to thank the Borough President's office and all of our elected officials for making sure that in the interim, the Emma Bowen Center has space to continue operating in our neighborhood while this construction, if and when it begins, goes on. That's crucial, but we also need them the space to come back to. And not only are they cutting the space by square footage in half, they're doubling the actual rent that they would have to pay, which is not sustainable for a provider that primarily deals with, Medicaid reimbursement population. Finally, ahead of the Albany session, we are reviewing both the expired J51 tax abatements and the 421A program and attempting to come up with a list of priorities for our state legislators when they return to Albany in January. J51 in particular was a very valuable program for our neighborhood because it incentivized and helped landlords bear the cost of capital improvements that benefited tenants. It also preserved the rent regulated status of tenants in buildings receiving J51s, which there have been a number of lawsuits re-regulating units in those buildings. And it is also a valuable tool for our affordable co-ops and condos to help deal with the property tax burden and the burden of ongoing maintenance and capital repairs. So that's something that we're looking to, reimagine and replace, and then pass a resolution and send to our state electeds. It may be interesting for other boards to do the same, and we will share what we come up with next month. And I may share it to the Borough President's office for a look at by the other boards if that's something they're interested in. So thank you for the time, and good to see everyone this morning.
Thank you, Barry. Moving on, Cicely Harris, please.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to be pretty brief. I'm attending the sexual harassment hearing on the model policy, which is happening at the Adam Clayton State Office Building today. So if you're interested in that, please take a look. CB10 is continuing to have virtual meetings. We are preparing for hybrid meetings. We are still looking for a space that would be conducive to that and keep everyone safe, and that they would feel that they are, in the best circumstances. So I know we've been working with the Borough President to kind of secure that space. Quick things on parks, a quick update on the Exonerated 5 project. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported it, who has been on those calls about the project. Right now, we're planning to do the gate of the Exonerated. So that's where the gate will be on the north side of the park. And we're looking at December 19th. That will be the date of the exoneration. So we thought that would be apropos to get it done on that day. So please look ahead for some invites on that. We're excited about rolling that out. We also had to do a new resolution supporting the gate because if everyone would remember, we wanted to support, of course, the spirit of what we're doing with the Exonerated 5 and, honoring those who have been exonerated in general. But there is, I think in there was mention of a permanent exhibit, and that's not what's happening right now. That might be down the road, but we had to do a new resolution that supports the gate, which is the gate of the Exonerated. So we did that yesterday, and it's going to work its way through the board. I believe it will make an appearance here at the next borough board. Keisha, I think that's correct. I know you've been on all the meetings too, but we'll confirm, make sure that happens. Also, Say Their Name is an exhibit that is in the park now. You can see it's a virtual exhibit. in the area of Seneca Village. This exhibit is honoring those who were their lives were ended by racism. So a virtual exhibit that starts, I think, Saturday and runs into October. You can use your phone to take part in this exhibit. And I believe it's at the 85th and Central Park West entrance. So if you enter there, there will be ambassadors there throughout this weekend to facilitate your viewing of the exhibit. I think it'll be wonderful. We supported it. It's traveling exhibit. I think it was in San Francisco and now it's here in Central Park. We have the African American Day Parade. It's that time of year again, everyone. So we're excited about that. That is on Sunday from 11 to 4. It starts at 111th and goes to 137th Street. So come on out. I believe the Borough President is marching. I think the governor's office will have a contingency. And of course, your beloved CB10 will be there. We have a float this year. And we finally will continue to work with the 125th Street bid on the revitalization project. We meet every other Tuesday, I believe, or every Tuesday. And I just want to thank the Borough President's office, the Mayor's office, and all of those agencies that are continuing to show up and make this happen. I know this is something they talked about for a while, but it's so encouraging when you see words actually turn into action. And so we're excited about that. We're also excited that we are continuing to work on the spillover from 125th, so 124th, 126th, and so forth. So that's all from CB10. And Barry, please hook us up with those legislation things that y'all are working on. It would be great to take part in that. Thank you all.
Thanks, Cicely. And I thank you for your brevity. Just a reminder to everyone, out of respect for each of the chairs, if you can keep your reports brief, that would be helpful. Moving on, Xavier.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning, and thanks for taking the time, Cicely, to catch up. And it was good seeing you earlier this week, Barry. I'll try to be as brief as possible. We've had a very jam-packed summer. I'm really proud of our board, a lot of new members. We had all the family days and a lot of events coming back, and including National Night Out, which I think we broke a record for participation from our board members and volunteering and showing up. So that was a real blessing for us. Our Open Streets program, which was spearheaded here in Northern Manhattan, it was very successful again. We're going to be rolling into movie nights once we get into October on Saturdays. So that's a nice little benefit for the community. That's co-sponsored with, we'll have one night, I think, with El Museo and then with the International Puerto Rican Heritage Film Festival. So it'll be a lot of fun. We attended the opening of the Pace Center at Arch Care. It was great to see this benefit for a lot of our seniors that oftentimes are neglected, as we saw during the pandemic. It was let's see who else. Elsie Encarnacion, who works for Deputy Speaker Ayala's office, was also in attendance. I was glad to have the BP's office at Ann Petrie's Place street naming this week. That was fantastic. It was good to see him and to honor someone who influenced a lot of my life when I first devoured the book, The Street, that gave representation for the voiceless here in Harlem. Along with Pity Thomas's Down These Mean Streets. I'd say it's required reading for coming into our neighborhood, those two books. We had a meeting with Palante as well, with several CMs. It was great to see you there, Barry. Still owe me a phone call. And I know we're all busy. It's dealing with the TIL program, although CB11 only has 2, I believe, right now. Many of them were to be converted into HDFCs. And they're still pursuing that promise, that commitment. So that was another event that was good to meet with a lot of our council members. I'm going to roll into something that's a bit, I'd say, tawdry and controversial, but that's our OPC here that was cited. We had our Human Services Committee meeting this past Tuesday. Dr. McRae from DOH MH attended. He had also attended December of 2021. Regrettably, despite sending in advance multiple questions asking for metrics of why it was cited here at NIRI, which is now on point, we gained nothing other than the fact it was the only place that could online fastest. We did confront the issue head on with asking about the overdoses that have impacted all of Manhattan, but the highest being in the South Bronx, second highest being Staten Island, and you had to combine all of Northern Manhattan, not just East Harlem, but all of Northern Manhattan to get us into third. And why did we get 2? There regretfully wasn't an answer to the questions we proposed, and he then cut the meeting short to deal with a personal matter, which left many members of the public alarmed, to put it best. Personally, on the issue, and then for those that do know me, I've dealt with my family and friends who've suffered from substance abuse, and it shaped a lot of my points of view. However, in this particular instance, it's also impacted my kids finally, where they witnessed someone slumped over on 111th with a needle in his arm. And I had to explain to my 5-year-old, this is a regular occurrence since the sighting of the OPC, and it's spread out as a web. A lot of the parents are very concerned. We're taking it very seriously. We did have a moratorium, resolution calling for a moratorium for no new or additional services. Again, we remain with many unanswered questions, including the stats, the metrics, how many people are being retained, how many people are being enrolled to the program. At this point, where we are headed now is for a more complete, robust answers from DOH-MH. And after speaking with Pauline Ferrante there, we have come to the conclusion that it will take a multi-agency approach with mayoral influence to actually achieve a tenable result. So that's something I'm looking forward to working with this office. Our board is very concerned, especially when our children are being impacted. And those that know the studies that were done decades ago, that when you normalize or expose youth on a regular basis to substance abuse, whether in an internal or external environment, they are more apt to engage in those behaviors in later adult life. Just one of those point of facts. And we really want this to be taken seriously, not just on a borough level, but a citywide level. That also brings me to the other aspect that was addressed during that meeting, which was Senate Law 2523, which dealt with the hypodermic needle cells and the amount you could carry, which is allowed for a lot of open air drug use. I'm going to have a meeting with Councilmember Richardson Jordan, who I also met at the Palante event, and we're going to discuss some of the models that were used in Europe, which had studied these issues back in the 70s and 80s and found what worked and what didn't. So I appreciate any of my other board members, if you're experiencing these issues, ways we can work together for a more equitable solution for not just recovery of people suffering from drug afflictions, but also dealing with preventing our youth from being exposed to these environments. Moving on, we are dealing Monday, congestion pricing. We unfortunately lost quorum at Public Safety and Transportation. There are a lot of issues that were addressed during that meeting, right as we lost quorum. As we saw during the pandemic, we had an influx of cars, people that would park here and then take the subway down. That is still occurring on a regular basis. In fact, many people that are coming in are using WhatsApp to actually change out their cars. I'm very thankful to have the street cleaning back, because that's actually deterring a lot of that problem, but we still have a high amount of cars and a lot of people who require the use of their cars to get around in the community, including using one of the last free bridges, which is in the zone. But they're going to be discussing it, weighing in on the position. That will be sent out as our testimony by the 23rd. And then finally, on a very, very happy note, and I look forward to seeing the BP as well as other members who can attend. Hopefully, Cicely, you'll be able to make it, is the Cicely Tyson Street renaming on 101st between Lexington and 3rd. Very excited for that as someone who runs a production company, having members of people of color being represented in all walks, and also the fact that she was from this community, but also show where she lived in Central Harlem as well, that we produce great individuals in the arts in all walks of life. So with that, I conclude my report. Look forward to working with all of you. Please stay safe out there.
Thank you, Xavier. I know that Eleazar is not with us today. Moving on to Tammy. Also, just want to flag for everyone that we actually, our office has a training at 10:30 that most of us need to be in. If we can keep our reports brief, that'd be great. Thank you.
I will absolutely work on that. So here I go. Thank you very much. And this is our 10-year anniversary since Superstorm Sandy. I want to note that specifically for CB1, who 3 out of 4 sides are by the water, and we were so hugely affected, we are working very closely with the Battery Park City Authority and the city to see what kind of programs, but we still haven't heard anything from the Army Corps of Engineers that we're looking to protect the west side at all. The FIDI Seaport plan is due to start soon, but we really are hoping to have a larger dialogue about public use and public realm in the basic plans, access to the shoreline, to ensure that the entire east side is not commercialized. There would be opportunities for public use. There's no reason that a plus pool harbors, shoreline, access to the water can't be had on the east side. And yet at the same time, because the Battery Park City Authority is doing their northwest, there's an engagement on September 19th I'd like to share for everyone. It will protect going up a little bit onto the west side to protect the pinch point at Chambers. It's super important for public engagement. And since it affects all of New York in terms of protection, I'd love more people to participate and get involved. 5 World Trade Center, we are advocating as much as we can. This is our largest and right now sole opportunity for meaningful income restricted housing for decades, potentially in a large scale. We hope this will lead to a change in the plan. So instead of 75% luxury, there's a much higher number. The community is advocating for 100% affordable because it's backed by LMDC. We spoke about the congestion pricing hearings that were at the end of August. The community was pretty irritated the fact that most people were on vacation the last week of August. And so the congestion pricing, which is hugely impactful for us, we feel that there should be public hearings within the congestion pricing zone, again, during the school year, when families are around, when people are here, not just at the end of August, and that people should have a chance to have direct conversations with the people who are creating the plans and show up to community. We appreciate the borough president's help with PS 150 and going to the planning meeting. I'd like to happily report that the first 2 days went spectacularly last week. Unfortunately, that dropped off. NYPD disappeared due to UNGA, and it was pandemonium this week. And for people who do not know, PS 150 is sited at the very bottom where the exit of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel is. So the congestion and the trucks and the buses and everything that come to that one pinch point at the bottom of Greenwich Street is wildly dangerous. We found out that DOT school safety is not empowered to speak to the bus company. So we need somehow to get connections between DOT school safety and DOE to enable them to directly talk to each other so that the bus drivers and the bus companies actually know the safety plans that were put in place and aren't just dropping off wherever they can in the middle of a bus lane or by the parking garage and things like that. It's really astounding to me how well it went the first 2 days and how poor it has been this week. We are hoping that NYPD steps back in, steps back up. We've already requested additional street barriers because they have the very lightweight ones that are literally being pushed along by cars and people. And it's a brand new school. It's about as dangerous as it can get. So while we thought we had a great plan in place, I, urge the borough president's office to help us get the DOE to be able to connect with DOT school safety so we can get a holistic plan that everybody is on the page, because the city agencies are widely left and right.
We'll work on it. Thank you.
And with that, I will cut short the rest of my conversations. I'd like to ask the borough president's office to share the Northwest Resiliency. I will send the meeting dates and times. It can be virtual for people to participate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tammy, moving on to Janine.
Hi, good morning. I have a short report. I want to just highlight a couple local issues, and I'd like to help get as much of the borough president's support from moving away from pitting one community against another. The first is pitting rent protected tenants against success of small businesses. We've been told that landmarks is sufficient. This week, the LPC approved combining 2 storefronts in a building in Soho. What does this mean? A building that used to have a center entrance and 2 small storefronts will have a side entrance and 1 larger storefront. But what does this mean for tenants? The staircase that goes to each floor in the center of the building will have to reconnect somehow to the side of the building, and that will cause a lot of construction and significant impact for the tenants. None of that's been resolved. Just want to keep highlighting from a rezoning from 10 years ago, the city has an option to build a public school on a grocery store site. If the city doesn't exercise its option, site 100,000 square foot site reverts back to NYU. This is basically pitting the school advocates versus residents who shop and visit this 24-hour grocery store. Key to the solution is New York University, who was able to eliminate the requirement for a grocery store in their new building in the final rezoning 10 years ago. So we'll continue to work with our elected officials on these issues. I also want to highlight with the conditional adult use retail dispensary cannabis licensing period closing at the end of the month. CB2 is preparing to receive cannabis business applicants. Our Equity, Race, and Justice Committee Chair Mark Fitzgerald has been working with other Manhattan Community Board leaders, including CB10, Dr. Smith, and Charles Johnson, CB12, Domingo Estevez, to create a process that includes a questionnaire and resolution templates and a briefing for boards that we will share once they're completed. And just want to highlight, if we can get vaccines at public schools with some kind of financial bonus to PTAs, that will be a great thing. And I just want to highlight a shout out to Dr. Shirley Smith. Dr. Shirley Hunter Smith, she's a consultant, educational consultant and advocate for children and families. And she established the first Black History Month celebration at International House when she was a resident there and has remained a loyal and supportive alumni for decades. She will be honored at the grand opening of the Donald L. Cuneo Hall of History at International House on October 6th. I just want to point out other awardees are Madeline Albright, so we're quite proud of Dr. Smith in our community. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Janine. Exciting stuff. Moving on to Paul.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'll be brief. Just want to thank the Borough President's Office for coordinating and taking minutes for the budget consultations recently. So we thank you for taking that on. I know I had something I had mentioned in my previous report last month, so thank you for taking that on. Also, as you may have heard during Councilmember Brewer's report, there was, and it's been all over the news, our Reese houses. There was an issue of potential having arsenic in the water at the Reese houses. Then that story was retracted. Apparently, there is all safe right now, but we at CB3 continue to support the residents and the Residents Association of Reese houses and whatever needs they may have. One other thing, we did have our budget priorities public hearing last night, and something that did come up was there's been a proposal to bury the pit in Sarah D. Roosevelt Park, which is part of the Chinatown Revitalization Initiative. And we understand that people are organizing against this proposal, so we wanted to make the President's Office aware of that, and people who are organizing against this proposal feel they have not been asked for input and are not being heard. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. That is it. We've only had a few committee meetings, and then we have our parks meeting tonight, SLA next week, exec next week, and then full board hopefully right before the executive order expires. And that's it for CB3. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Moving on to Jeffrey.
Thanks, and good morning again, everybody. Just a couple of things from Board 4. Obviously, we will be scaling up our learning around the Asylum Resource Center at Red Cross on 49th. We recently, after a 7-month working group process, our sanitation planning working group released some policy recommendations for new development and how to manage and store residential trash. It also has some guidelines and framework for how any buildings that get renovated should plan and make room for trash and how to better manage that. We're really proud of this policy document, and it is something once we've sent our letters to the council member and the agencies, I'd be interested in sharing with the Borough President's Office with hope that it could get circulated to our fellow board colleagues. We talked to many city agencies, developers, supers, buildings, all sorts of stuff to formulate these. And, we talk a lot of trash on the regular, but trying to fix this problem, I think, is a universal interest to all. And then we are also in the midst of another ULURP in Board 4, this time on what we refer to as the DEP site, a long-time site on 10th Avenue and an access to the water tunnel, new third water tunnel shaft that will be both a public park and also have an affordable housing development built over the Amtrak rail cut there between 10th and 11th Avenues. We are in the final stages of that and looking forward to that coming to a favorable end, working with the Borough President's office to make sure we can get what we want to in terms of income affordability bands, filling the donut hole in those bands, and making sure unit distribution is appropriate for the neighborhood. Continue to thank the Borough President's office for his leadership on all of the health concerns we're facing right now. And of course, staying attuned to those executive orders as well. So Keisha, that's it for me. And thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Moving on to Vicky.
Thank you. I think my camera just died. I don't see myself. Anyway, I just want to make a comment before I do I'll do a very quick report. That just to say how blown away I always am by the extreme differences in issues that we all deal with, in our districts. I listen to what goes on, especially Northern Manhattan, and it blows my mind, especially being landlocked in Midtown. Not to ever minimize the wonderful work that we do in our great district, but some of the issues that you all deal with are so very and differently challenging. I just want to point that out. It's amazing. So here's my quick report. We recommended approval of the certification and transfer of about 81,000 square feet of floor area from the Ambassador Hotel on 49th Street and to 748th Avenue as per our city zoning resolution. So the zoning resolution provides unused development rights may be transferred from theaters to receiving sites within the theater subdistrict of the special Midtown district. And the approval was with assurances of continued use and maintenance of the theater. Additionally, the board requested that the applicant and the owner of 748th Avenue present the design of the building to the Land Use Committee for review and comment. We conditionally approved an application for the landmark Lexington Avenue Armory, which was built between 1904 and 1906 and designed by noted architects Hunt and Hunt. The application is for the restoration and renovation of the facade and the exterior of the building and was approved with the condition that the applicant consider changing the doors and hardware to preserve the integrity and historic character of this great building. We denied a request. This is something that I think Board 4 was also in attendance for our committee meeting. It was a request by the Compton Ale House on the north side of West 26th Street between 6th and 7th Avenues. They wanted to alter the existing method of operation to extend their hours of operation from 2 a.m. closing to 3 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday and 4 a.m. on Thursday through Saturday. So the block, which is really it's on the north side of CB5's district and the south side is CB4. It's been extremely problematic for the residents. So this one block right now, we have at least 8 bars and nightlife facilities on the block with lots of residential buildings. And they all have a closing hour of 2 a.m. And we have found that the 2 a.m. closing has been effective in balancing the needs of bar and nightlife businesses that reasonably preserves the quality of life in this mixed-use neighborhood. So we didn't want to create a precedent for other operators on the block to want later operating hours, which we're sure would have happened and would have been detrimental to the balance between residents and businesses. Our transportation committee is creating a DOT regular engagement task force to address design, signage, education, and regulations with DOT. It's something that I'm going to be reaching out to my colleagues, all of you, because we're really at a point of frustration in dealing with DOT. And so we put together a task force to talk about the fact that I think just quite frankly, we're sick and tired of having presentations made to us with very little information, no answers to questions that we give over and over. I mean, it's just a very frustrating process. And so the task force is going to try to create a way to work with DOT before it even gets to the committee level. And if we don't have the kind of information that we feel we need to make recommendations, we're going to tell them we don't want them to come to the committee and throw things at us with very, as I said, very little means of making a intelligent decision on what they're asking us. So I will be back to all of you on that. Lastly, our licensing committee is putting together a cannabis task force. I think many of you, if not all of you, are doing the same. We are definitely alarmed by how little is known and what role CB5s will have, if any, in the process. So like other boards, we're anxiously awaiting the finalization of the regulations. Thank you so much. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Vicki. And on a personal note, I will just add that to your report that I attended the renaming of the Court Theater after James Earl Jones a couple days ago. And so that's a wonderfully positive and lovely news that I thought I'd share out. Moving on to Kyle.
Great, thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. So CB6 had a summer hiatus. We actually had our first full board meeting of the season last night. We welcomed over 10 new community board members, which is really, really exciting. So we're excited to see their contributions to each of their committees and to the board as a whole. One of the big issues that we dealt with over the summer, which we mentioned last time, but also our fellow board to the north, CB8, dealt with as well, is this whole redistricting issue. So thanks to the borough president for his testimony as well. We were all present at the Schaumburg talking about the craziness of the redistricting proposals. And we're very glad to see a lot of strong community presence at those hearings as well. So continue to monitor that situation as well. And then again, just thanks to the borough president's office for his solidarity and support in that as well. We are also dealing with this, as everyone else is, with the emergency orders expiring, which kind of puts our future meetings in flux. We're still not seeing, at least in our district, because there are hospitals and schools, public spaces that want to hold a large gathering of people. If we revert to the hybrid model that was shared, we still need to have a space for a large group of people. So we are dealing with that as well. And then just the last thing, just to keep it short, we connected with the borough president's office last month with the new land use liaison, which has been really great. And we're excited to talk about something we haven't talked about in a while, which is the Brookdale site on East 25th Street. So looking forward to making progress on that as well in this upcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Moving on, Andrew for CB7.
Hello. So I'm just, still acting interim chair. So just helping with the transition and trying to get everything in order and prepared for our elections, which will be at our October board meeting. We'll elect a new chair, new executive committee. So just really working, making sure that's a smooth transition for folks. Earlier this week, there is a joint housing and health and human services meeting. We had a presentation from the administration about their housing plan. They presented a lot of data. As you could imagine, there were many, many questions from board members and from other members of the public. So they were going to kind of recap and see next steps, because our community definitely wants to be more involved in better understanding what's happening with all types of housing within our district. And imagine that's of great interest to folks in all the other districts as well. As has been mentioned, lots of questions about issues related to cannabis. We are scheduling another meeting with the Office of Cannabis Management. Lots of stores are selling. We have trucks, we have carts. So that's something that continues to come up from members and other residents in the community. Our full board passed a really great resolution, I think, addressing matters related to the school construction authority. We have multiple schools in our district that has been having construction going on for years and years and years, it seems. It can be disruptive to not only the students, but the communities surrounding it. So the resolution essentially calls on the SCA, all of our elected officials, to work more closely with the community board and other folks on a regular basis to get updates on the construction, the process, and let us have some input because, as I said, it's being disruptive. And then just last, on a really positive note, some of you may be familiar between 100th Street and 99th on Broadway, the old Metro Theater, which has been sitting there vacant for, I think, at least 15 years now. Last night at our Business Consumer Issues Committee, the committee approved a liquor license for the theater. We're excited. Finally, it seems like there's actually a real lease and real progress, and someone's going to start construction soon and reopen the beautiful old Metro Theater. Members of the committee very excited. Many, several members that lived on the block and the surrounding area came out, just very excited to kind of bring the theater back, hopefully to its glory, and bring some more positive kind of foot traffic and just excitement back to the community, and certainly have some nice positive impacts to the just neighborhood as a whole. So that's really it for now. If I don't see folks next month because we have a new chair, it's been it's been brief, but nice hearing about everything going on in your neighborhoods, and keep up the important work. And thanks to the BP and the whole team over there for everything you've been doing.
Thanks, Andrew. I remember going to that theater when I was young. I look forward to it reopening. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous space. All right, moving on. Russell. Last but not least.
Thank you. So, yep, thank you. So we actually haven't had a full board meeting since our last borough board meeting, but we have been doing a lot of stuff. So Kyle mentioned that redistricting is a big issue still. And so as he mentioned, a lot of people from the east side were out at the hearing. We had a very, very strong turnout. I want to thank Kyle and the other folks from CV6 who have been working with us, and also people from Queens, frankly, who have been working with us to try and avoid having this cross-borough district that they put in the draft plan. And I'm also very proud to say that we had hundreds of people submitting, possibly thousands, submitting testimony and letters and emails, and more people from the east side doing that than anywhere else put together. So hopefully the districting commission takes that to heart and makes some changes in the next round, which I gather we'll be getting soon. We were disappointed to find out that Safe Haven, which has been slated to come to our district, and which our community board approved overwhelmingly, apparently the service model for that facility has now been changed, and we have not been able to get any information from the Department of Homeland Services about why that change has been made, what the specifics of the change are in terms of what the service model specifically is going to be. So we are still pushing for information on that, but we're hoping we can have it as a safe haven, continue to have it as a safe haven, because that's what we had approved. And, that's something that the community is behind. And I do want to thank the Borough President's office for helping us with that. And just going back, thank you also for standing with us on the redistricting fight. And the last thing that I'll say is, on a sort of positive note, we have another one of our art shows coming up. So we've been doing art shows in our district where they're outdoors. Local artists can display their art. If people want to sell art, they can do that too, but you don't have to sell it. It's enough just to display it. And it's a great time for the community to come out, and we've had live music. So the next one we're doing is October 15th. I'm actually going to put a link to our flyer in the chat, but basically we are, everybody is welcome to attend. We've had good attendance, but would be great to see everybody there. But also any artists who are interested in displaying their work, we always like to have more. And so I am hoping that all my fellow community board chairs can help spread the word and get the word out and solicit folks to come. And for the elected officials who are on, if you can include info about this in your newsletter, we would appreciate this, because we're just trying to get the word out more broadly to try and get more people to participate. So that is that. That's my report.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Russell. With that, we've concluded all chair reports. Unless there is other business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, I forgot to mention our staff. Oh, my bad. I love you all.